Hi, everyone. This is Jay with the American Hammers TV coming at you from Iowa. Today we are talking West Ham women, and I am pleased to be joined on the line by Allie. Allie, feel free to introduce yourself and tell us about your West Ham experience and everything like that.
Yep. So my name's Ali. I always say that I'm a far away hammer, but I'm not as far away as you guys. I'm based up in Manchester, but make the long trek down to Rush Green every home game for the women. I've been a West Ham fan since I was 7, but I followed the women seriously this season when they went up to the WSL.
Very good. And is it a family connection to West Ham, or how are you up in Manchester? And go down every week. I'm always kind of interested in people's stories and stuff like that.
Well, I was born within the sound of Bow Bells, but my mother would kill me if I supported any other team.
I guess kind of what we'll do today is we'll kind of start. We'll talk about last season. We'll go through that. So kind of I know, and I know a lot of people know, West Ham started the season. West Ham's ended to that season. We went up to WSL 1. There was maybe a bit of controversy about that.
Yes, definitely.
And then I was following, and it seemed like the women were doing pretty well all season and doing a really good job, and squeaked into that FA Cup final. I heard I was listening to Stop Hammer Time, and they kind of intimated that maybe we didn't deserve to make it to that game again, into that final. Like Reading were maybe the better team, but sometimes that's how football falls for you. And just kind of, you want to kind of give an overview of the season, what happened, and kind of where we are at the end of last season, kind of coming into the summer, coming into the Women's World Cup, stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. So last season obviously was our first big jump up to the WSL. We had a pretty solid season, finishing 7th. We finished our relegation battle early in December, so we could focus on things like the FA Cup run. Reading were slightly the better team, and I know Gilly got away with a couple of fouls that she was convinced were penalties, but the ref didn't give. Sometimes dodgy ref decisions go your way. But it was more about getting the team together and gelling, which I think we did, but then we got rid of 7 of our players. So that may be more building we'll have to do again this season.
And it's certainly like the that the FA Cup final against Man City. What I kind of gathered from that, and from what I heard, unfortunately it wasn't aired here, and so I was like, well, it is an FA Cup final. Maybe, just maybe, they might show it on TV here in the States. No, of course not. And we're going into the Women's World Cup this summer. You would think, oh, maybe in the build-up we'll show. We haven't showed any WSL games all season on any American channel, but maybe, just maybe, we'll show the FA Cup final. Nope. Not even a chance of that. So I wasn't able to see the game, but certainly, like a review I heard, it was the best game I think both the men and the women had against Man City all season.
Yep, absolutely, definitely. And we were so close. Like, first half we had them, and then second half they obviously got an ear bashing from their manager saying you can't lose to West Ham, and so they came out flying, and we sort of went to pieces. And the less said about that third goal, the better. I love you, Anna, but don't do an Adrienne and run out like that again. But we definitely, it was the best game we've played as a team against Man City, and definitely won the top flight 3 games, one of the best.
And I certainly compared to Watford, and how they did against Man City in the FA Cup, in the shared FA Cup finals, we came out better as well. So end of the day, I see it as Mark Ruffalo says in the new Avengers Endgame. I see this as a win. So
absolutely. The fact we got there in our first season was a win.
So as you mentioned, we had seven players outgoing. Do you kind of know what's been going on with that? I've heard a lot. There's been a lot of hand wringing. I know such prominent blogs as the H List has. He's been kind of taking the women's team to task about it and stuff like that. I know he's been a big fan of it. He and a couple of the guys from Stop Hammer Time, I know, have gone to a couple games. What has been going on with the outgoings? What's been occurring with that?
So the first two, with nothing we could do about it, two players retired. So we've lost Lucianne, who's in our midfield because she's decided she wants to be a psychologist and she's finishing off her PhD. And so that's fair play. And Raf has decided that 3 new knees is enough. And having had 3 knee replacements for her ACL, she's decided that's it. And she now is going to take a more behind the scenes role at Chelsea, but we won't go into that. So that was fair enough. There was not much we could do about that. Others, however, there's definitely something we should have tried to do, especially now we've got no wingers because apart from Erin, because both Raf and Rhea have gone. Rhea's now gone to Spurs. Which again, we don't really want to talk about. And so that's leaving our defence a bit weak because we've only really got Erin and Brooke and Jilly at the back. But apparently she was a Spurs fan to begin with, so she wants to go play for her childhood club. So,
and I mean, I don't know you can begrudge people that, especially I've read a little bit of David Squires' one of his books about or one of his comic series about like the history of football and stuff like that. And he did a piece on women footballers and during the World War II, how women's football had really taken off and really picked up in and it was drawing bigger crowds than the men's game.
Yeah.
When the men's game returned, and the FA basically went, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a case that you can't beat the men like that, so we're just going to ban you. You're just not allowed to play on any FA grounds, which is why a lot of clubs never had women's teams. So like Man United came in last season and Tottenham really elevated their game for that reason. So that's going to, like you said, you can't really begrudge it because like Kate Longhurst, our midfielder, is West Ham through and through. Absolutely. So for her coming last season, that was her dream to play in the Claret and Blue. And we managed to re-sign her. We kept her. So it's one West Ham fan.
But yeah, when you don't have that to go off of, when you don't have that or when that connection exists, you've grown up and you're like, well, I don't know that I'll ever get to play for this team anyway. You can't begrudge someone then saying, well, I've always wanted. Yeah, I'm a childhood Spurs fan. I've always wanted to play for Spurs. As much as we might, pinch our nose and no, you can't do that. Please go elsewhere. At the same time, you can't begrudge someone wanting to do that. It's really, in kind of a startup league in some ways, like you got to give other people that opportunity.
Absolutely. So yes, so Rhea was a bit of a shock because we kind of got an inkling at the end of last season who might be out, and Rhea was never on that list. So when Rhea announced her transfer, that was quite a surprise one. The fan surprise one is Brie Vasali, who was our number 15, because she was a fan favourite. We all loved her. We all loved her on the pitch. And then for the club to let her go after such a great season was quite hard to take.
And so what happened with that? Where did she go?
She's now gone to Birmingham City, so she's going to be playing against us this season. However, Birmingham players. Birmingham have had a mass exodus this season, so it'll be quite interesting to see how she does at Birmingham because she's going to be one of only about 5.
Blackpool men had that season a couple of years ago, where at the start of the season they had 13 players total or something like that.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what Birmingham are going to do. I think.
Oh boy,
it seems to be constantly. If you follow the FAWSL fan blogs, it's constantly, and this player's not playing for Birmingham anymore, and this person has got rid of their contract at Birmingham. So it'll be interesting.
That'll be very exciting. And so we covered 4 so far. You said there were 7 total. Who were the other 3?
So the other 3 is Rosie Kamita, who hasn't announced her new club yet. Rosie was quite a sad one because she came up with us when we were in the lower leagues, and she was the one that they kept. But she doesn't quite fit into Matt Field's style of play, so she didn't really get much playing time. She, from what I hear, is going to be dropping down a league, so she's possibly going to go into the Championship, which will be quite interesting. But it also means that she's not going to be our direct competition.
So that's good.
Like her, yeah.
Certainly don't want to be going head to head with fellow, with former Hammers, and as always seems to happen to us, a former player always scores against us, or
You can guarantee it. For a fact, if Arnie had gone to an English club, he would have been the first one to score against us.
Oh, absolutely. or he goes to Chelsea had they not had this transfer ban. We'd be set for our first win at Stamford Bridge in however many years. And he'd just pop up like in the last minute with a goal to like tie the game. Well, there goes that opportunity. Try it again next year, I guess.
Yeah, he would have done that.
And then two more left.
Two more left. So the other one is our other goalkeeper, Becky Spencer. She has also gone to Tottenham. I don't think that's a childhood dream. Basically, her game time dropped. So she was originally our number one goalkeeper, and then she had a couple of bad runs, and so he gave Anna Morehouse a shot, and Anna kept 3 clean sheets in 3 games, so he kept playing Anna, and so Becky sort of lost her number one spot, I think, up until the game at Bristol when she had to play because Anna had got a red card the game before. The first time game time she got was back in December for a half against Yeovil, so I think she just wants more game time, really. So,
and the fans of the men's team will certainly know Adrienne, leaving and going out to, same thing. We bring in Fabianski. He's obviously a better keeper. I mean, there's no question about it. And I'm sure that's a similar situation. You're seeing your playing time drop. You were the number one or were around that number one position for so long, and you see your playing time diminish. You want to go somewhere else and prove you can be a number one. So
absolutely. So again, we don't begrudge her, even though she could have picked a better team.
Right, absolutely. And there, one more.
The last one is our striker Jane Ross, who has more offended her former club than us because she's gone to Man United and she came from us from Man City. So there's more Man City fans that are annoyed at this transfer than West Ham fans because we're like, fair play, you want to go back because her family live up here. That's fair enough. Man City fans, not so much.
Right. And I mean, that everyone knows that connection, and it's kind of a one-way rivalry, but in a weird way, I know in WSL it's kind of the reverse. Man United didn't have a women's team
absolutely
for all those years, and all of a sudden they've now got they second they went into the second tier last season and
the championship.
Yep, so they're just coming up. So so it's almost the shoes are reversed. Man City's had this history of success, and Man United's just kind of this is their first go around. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that shakes out. And I like I said, I don't have a way to watch the games here, but I know I'll be listening to the Offside Rule podcast and stuff like that, trying to keep track of these things. So
yes, because the first game of the season, there's 3 derbies. So it's Man United, Man City, first game of the season at Man City. It's Chelsea, Tottenham, and it's us versus Arsenal. They've gone for 3 derbies in the opening game of the season.
Man, if only the men's if the Premier League would be that exciting at the opening of the season.
Opening game of the season.
Instead, we just all know we're going to get slaughtered, and maybe we'll just turn up week 2 and
pretty much
try to get there. So incomings, the 3 incomings I've got down so far, and I might have missed someone, but I've got 3. I've got
3.
Okay, so Laura Vetterlein, Martha Thomas, and Jacinta. Like we said, we're not going to try to pronounce that last name.
Nope.
Certainly I know Martha Thomas. She comes from America. And she was playing. Was it Le Havre last season?
Yeah, she was playing Le Havre in the French league last year. She's apparently, from what people are saying, she's a young, undiscovered talent. Which, to be fair, Matt did that with Bree last year. He's done that with Leanne Kernahan, who's staying with us, our Irish international. And he has great track records in bringing those young players and making them into class players. So it'll be interesting to see. But Martha's also played for the under-23s at the US level. So she's definitely got some skill about her. So it'll be interesting to see how she's going to slot into our midfield with our seasoned midfielders, mainly Kate Longhurst.
Well, and I'm sure I speak for all the guys on this side. We'd love to see, people who wear the West Ham shirt at club level representing the United States at international level. So it might not be. I've seen some of the controversy online involving Megan Rapinoe. So maybe I know there's certainly some West Ham fans over on that side who might not enjoy that as much as we will. So Laura Vetterlein, what Sand FC? What is this team? That's a very strange name, certainly.
Yeah, that's in the German leagues, I believe. And she is actually good friends with Julia Simic, who already plays for us. They won the Champions League together at Wolfsburg.
Okay.
So she's definitely a proven player. She's got that level of experience. Like I said, she's friends with Julia, which means she's already got that bond there. And yeah, she's won the Champions League back-to-back with Wolfsburg. So she definitely knows what she's doing.
And 27, right? I saw 26, 27.
Yes.
So I certainly still coming into her prime, and as a defender, I certainly she can play into her later years and get that center back partnership or that defensive partnership going again, and maybe watch West Ham certainly climb up the table. And then the last one so far at time of recording, as we said, Jacinta. We're not going to try and pronounce that last name. Like I said, I might say Mönchengladbach. And so she's 17, and I saw she's only played 4 games in Australia. What's the promise here?
However, she has one of the youngest players in the Australian national team because she's been called up, and also she was flagged as a person to watch a couple of years ago, and she did almost sign for Everton, but it didn't quite work out, I think, visa-wise, because she was only 16 then, so we've luckily swooped in and got her. From what I've seen from like the videos that they put up on YouTube, she is a very skillful player. She reminds me a bit of a young Tobin Heath in the fact that she's very skillful and can do an awesome nutmeg. So I think she'll be definitely one to watch.
That's exciting. Was she? So you said she's like a young international. Did she feature at all in the Women's World Cup this summer for Australia? And they've got a strong women's team. So
she didn't this year, but I think she's been in the unders, and they had their World Cup last year.
Okay, because I didn't get to watch as much as the Women's World Cup as I would have liked. For those who don't know, I work overnights, so I sleep during around the time from about 8 a.m. Central Time. So that would be about 2 o'clock GMT until about anywhere till 2 p.m. my time, so that'd be about 8 p.m. your guys' time usually.
Yeah, most of them.
Yeah, so
games.
So I miss a good chunk of games. So I put a lot of games on record and or would watch a game right at the end of the day, watch one of those late games. But I didn't get to watch as much as I would have liked. So I didn't recognize the name, but I don't know how many thinking back, I don't know how many Australia games I watched. So
his name's Sam, and that's about it.
So are there any more expected incomings? I mean, there's got to be, right? 7 players out. You've only brought 3 in.
Yeah. So the rumor mill is that we're going after Kenza Dali, who is a French international, and she did feature in the World Cup this year. She was in the French side. She's just been released from Dijon, who are in the French league, and she's been seen cycling around London with Julia and Esme de Grasse. So that's a bit of a hint that she might be coming to West Ham.
Well, that'd be great. I mean, the French are great, and I mean their women's team is certainly I'd say one of the top 4 or 5 in the world. So that always a bonus to get a top level international in your side.
Absolutely. And then the other rumor mill is that we're going after a Norwegian international, but they won't tell us who. Okay.
And another quick question, just kind of for my interest, as fans of the men's team, is there an ex-WHU employee, ex-WHUW women's employee where you get this information, or where do you kind of find these things out? What's the big rumor source, or is there a good follow on Twitter for West Ham women's news?
To be honest, most of it comes from players' parents. Because the thing with the women's game, it's much more intimate, it's much more connected. So you'll get like the odd word from a player's parent that's like, oh, they're talking to so and so, or this person's come in and stuff like that. But She Kicks is a great one. They do general women's football, but they tend to have the knowledge before it becomes official. And a guy called Rich Laverty tends to know what's happening before anybody else does.
Okay. Like I mentioned the offside rule. Are there any other women's. That's a great podcast. I love the people on that. I think they do a great job. Are there other sources of news that you go to? Would you recommend that one? Do you have another podcast you might recommend for women's football? Or
definitely Offside Rule. They're brilliant. There's a site that does both written and podcast called Since 71, and they're all leagues of women's football. So they cover the WSL, the Championship, the different conferences, and that's written by the fans for the fans. So that tends to be a great source of information because you feel like you're part of it. So definitely you should check out Since 71.
And there's a I actually just discovered this the other day. There's a Twitter account, Effortista, like it's kind of spelled like Trequista. Man, I need to work on my Italian. Trequista, but it's like effort, and apparently it's a blog, or it's a site that's the main focus is football but covered by women. So my understanding is they're looking for people to kind of cover all levels of the game, both men's and women's levels, but they want female bloggers, female writers, stuff like that. So I wasn't sure if you'd heard about that, or and I know they're looking for writers. So if you're looking for something else to do in your spare time, that might be worth looking into. But they seem like a really good website. I referred a local friend of mine who in Iowa, she's kind of the soccer don. She kind of puts people in touch. I sent her a thing as soon as I read about this website. I'm like, you need to get in touch with these people. You need to start writing for this blog. And so it seems really interesting, and she seems really excited about it. So I wasn't sure if you had heard about that, or like I said, it might be something worth looking into.
Yeah, for sure.
And is there anything else you kind of want to touch on about the women's team? Players to look out for? Do you have a favorite player in the women's team? Favorite player in the men's team? Favorite game, certainly, or?
Well, the FA Cup final, that was very hard to beat. However, the semi-final against Reading, I don't think my heart has recovered from that game when it went down to penalties. In regards to favourite player, it's probably got to be our captain, Gilly. She's a Millwall fan, and before people start Googling that, but she's one of the nicest, decent people. And she also gave me her FA Cup shirt at the end of the season, so you can't.
Very cool.
You can't really beat that.
I looked her up, and she's like the Ryan Fredericks of the West Ham women's team, because it's Millwall, Chelsea, Arsenal, like yeah. She's hitting all the London clubs. Ryan Fredericks, when we first signed him, I'm looking at him like, you're not going to be here very long because you're going to be moving to a different London club here in another year, like.
No, absolutely, but we've got Gilly for another season at least. She's re-signed, so that's a great thing. Men's player, I've got a soft spot for Armolenko in the current squad. I think he's rather sweet.
There was an image of him during training camp, and I put it in the West Ham American Hammers TV Discord chat, and it was like an image of him with like just this big smile on his face. Yeah. And it just reminded me of one of those like Facebook memes you'll see where it's like, when he smiles at you like that or whatever. I'm sure you know the ones I'm talking about. And I just wanted to crop this gorgeous image of Andrei Yarmolenko with his hair, with his hair back and his beard all nice and trimmed, with this gorgeous smile on his face. And I just wanted to post that image with that little caption on it. It was like, when I saw it, I was just like, that's perfect. Like, that is what that image was meant for.
Absolutely. Oh, he just seems so sweet. It's a shame he got injured last season. I can't wait to see what he can do.
And his time at Dortmund was great. And yeah, I mean, when he started coming in, I was getting really excited. And then, it's been two Achilles injuries essentially in 2 seasons. Yeah. Like, we just got to hope that, Yarmolenko and Wilshere can stay healthy for an entire season, or I don't know, maybe get half a season out of each. That would actually probably be all right.
It would actually be quite nice to see Wilshere play a bit.
He's looked great. He's looked great in preseason. Certainly, that's been the big thing. So what can people look forward to in the upcoming season? Players to look out for. I've actually in the build up to the Women's World Cup, I called into the World Football phone in there on the BBC, and I asked about like players to look out for. I don't remember what all they said. It was almost a month ago now, but certainly like players to look out for, not only within the West Ham women's team, but also kind of in general, and maybe even like positions to watch. Are there positions maybe in the women's game that are you think like of in the men's game, like a number 8 is more of like an all action kind of midfielder,
Yeah.
like is a number 8 a different kind of player? Like because I know there's a bit more. The women's game is played at a different pace. I always feel women's players are much more technically gifted than men's players. Because they don't have some of the athleticism. You can't rely on pure pace as much in the women's game. So there's a lot. I always feel like you see more tricks, better goals in the women's game, stuff like that. So are there positions that are different, or positions to certainly watch out for?
This year, I think it's going to be the years of the number 9s, the very traditional striker. I know Manchester City have poached Ellen White from Birmingham City, and Ellen White had a fantastic World Cup. She got the bronze boot for goal scored. She scored some cracking goals for England, and so Man City are going to be a threat again because of their number 9. But then again, we've just signed our number 9, which is Thomas. And she's going to be a threat. I think it's going to be the year of the number 9s and the strikers. In the team, I think you have to look out for that combination of Gilly and Brooke. Them two at the back is something to behold. And Gilly also thinks she's a goalkeeper and has done many goal line clearances to save our bacon. And I think she's going to carry that on.
No, and that was now when you talked about it being the year of the number 9, that was kind of what they said on the World Football Phone-In as well. I don't remember who they had on, and of course the BBC feed, they sometimes get rid of those right away, so it's hard to go back and find it. But they certainly they said the same thing. They talked about how it's going to be the year of the striker, how strikers are really coming into their own.
Absolutely.
So that certainly lines up with what you're saying there. Are there any other players to watch for? I mean, Man City's over there hoovering up talent like crazy, but have there been other exciting players coming into the league? Any other? Do you know any other Americans potentially coming into the league to look out for, since we are kind of an American-based channel?
There's a few, because there's rumors that like people like Alex Morgan are going to do a season at Chelsea and things like that. So they might do. We're mainly getting the youth players. A lot of the youth players are coming over to our league, because your league sort of finishes in a couple of months, and then they'll play until ours finishes. So we should get a couple, I think. In terms of young players, Arsenal seem to have bought most of Bayern Munich. Basically, Bayern Munich release a player and Arsenal will buy them. But yeah, it's the year, I think, also of the youth player. There's a lot of youth players being brought up. I know United has a very young squad. They've got a couple of senior players in Alex Greenwood and Siobhan Chamberlain, and having just signed Mary Earps, but that's it. The rest of the squad is really young. So I think we're going to see a lot of the under 20s coming forward. We've got our Leanne Kernahan, who's 18, 19. So it's going to be interesting to see how the youth players are stacking up against the experienced players.
So kind of to round out here, well, this will be a shorter episode certainly, and hopefully we'll be able to do more later. And I know you've Tim told me you're going to kind of be doing roundups for the women's team for us. Predictions for the new season. Certainly predictions for that opening game against Arsenal. I agree. We don't know all the ins and outs yet, but certainly rumored players. How do you think we'll do? Do you think we'll be battling relegation, or I know Yeovil have been traditionally the whipping boys of the women's team.
Absolutely.
But did they go down this year? Is that
they've gone down now. So it should be a bit more of an even playing field. I think we'll do well. I think we won't be battling relegation. I think we'll get that secured. Hopefully we can improve on 7th to look for 6th, 5th as a basis. The thing we need another goalkeeper. We can't focus on only having one goalkeeper. And we just need to strengthen our squad. Our problem last year was we had such a small squad. So when we got injuries, we felt them. But then to hear the naysayers who are like, oh, we've not signed anybody, you've got to remember people are coming back. So like Julia Simic is coming back from knee surgery. Esme de Graaf is coming back from her ACL surgery. Tess Middag, who never played for us because she injured herself just before the season started, is now back in training and fully fit. And I saw her at Man City, and she's a hell of a player. So
And that's a very West Ham thing to get injured before.
Oh yeah, of course it is. Like, got injured on international duty, but she's a hell of a player, and she's coming back fitter than ever. So we've got a team. We just need to strengthen it a little bit more.
Excellent. And one last thing popped into my head. We were getting ready to wrap up here. I did not see any of the Jack Sullivan, Britain's youngest football boss. Was there anything to learn from that? I know there's always kind of a discussion around documentaries about football teams, hurting clubs and stuff like that, and having impact on seasons. I think it recently came out all the Sunderland players blamed Sunderland Till I Die for them getting relegated a second time. Were there any insights to be gained from that? Has there been any kind of fallout, or what has the reaction kind of been to that whole program?
Well, we learned two things. Firstly, we learned that Jack is actually quite invested in the women's team. A lot of people thought it was sort of daddy's giving him a new toy, and it happens to be the women's team. But you actually do see on that documentary, he does want it to do well, and he is actually giving his time and stuff like that. You also learnt that Gold and Sullivan are very tight with the purse strings, not just with the men's team. You see that. But the main important thing was that Jack had a lot of passion, and he had a lot of respect for the women's players, and you see that a lot. The second thing we learned is I'm a big mouth, and you can hear me before you see me, as you do on episode 3 if you can access the documentary, because you can hear me yelling irons, and then it turns around and there I be.
That's always exciting. And I mean, it certainly over here, I might try to get a VPN set up to watch it, because it seemed really interesting. I'd like to check it out if ever given the opportunity. But yeah, I know, like, I've listened to Quickly Kevin, the former KUMB Chris Skull, his new project, and they talk about 90s football documentaries and like just how much of a train wreck they seem. So I'm glad to know it hasn't had such a negative impact over there that it kind of did, or that it has in the past. So it's always good that any way that the club can be shown in a good light, when sometimes it seems like we're crying out for some good publicity. Where can people find you, Allie? What as the season goes on, are there follow you on Twitter, anything like that? Anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I do have my own blog. It's called Adventures in Claret and Blue, and that's about my travels up and down the country and the ridiculous things I get myself into following the West Ham women. So you can find that, and also you can follow me on Twitter as Axel's Girl, because I used to be a heavy metal girl in my teenage years. And again, that I'll have links to the blog, and also I post a lot of news for the women's team. So yeah,
excellent. Well, Allie, it's been a blast having you on. I apologize to all the viewers that this is kind of a weird setup. This is kind of my first time doing this whole thing. I'm happy I was able to step in and pinch hit. But I'd love to get on with you again and talk more. Not only women's football, but just talk West Ham in general, and we'll hopefully get something figured out.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been great talking to you, and we'll like I said, we'll do this again soon, and hope the season starts and we'll get this going. So
absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.